The GameCube. In 2001, after losing its #1 spot to Sony, Nintendo released this boxy little contraption trying to reclaim its seat on the Iron Throne of home gaming consoles. The PlayStation was the first system to outsell Nintendo over the life cycle of a console since the NES debuted, and it absolutely boomed the 64 in sales. When it was all said and done for the 6th gen of consoles, Nintendo ended up getting shellacked by Sony again, but that's not to say that there was a problem with the GameCube itself. Nintendo just had the misfortune of going up against the juggernaut that was the PlayStation 2, which is, again, the greatest console ever made, so there's not a lot that they could do. They ran into another issue when the Xbox released, splitting an already shrinking market share with yet another strong competitor. When the dust settled, the GameCube ended up 3rd in lifetime sales behind the other two. But that doesn't mean that it was completely inferior. While it was packing more limited hardware and less features out of the box than the other two, the GameCube made up for it by doing what Nintendo does best. Nintendo has an incredibly strong history with their flagship games, and the GameCube was no exception. With games like Wind Waker, Metroid Prime, Double Dash, Pikmin, and Melee leading the charge, they continued their streak of quality first-party games, a streak that hasn't been broken since the 80s, even to this day. But we don't care about those great games right now. We want to know whether or not the worst of the GameCube is on par with the garbage that I've had to sift through on the PS2 and the Xbox. I saved this one for last because the list of games looked a bit more interesting than the other two, less sports games or racing games. Plus I figured with the love a lot of people have for the GameCube, this one might be a little bit more anticipated than the Xbox, so I held off a little bit for dramatic effect. Once again, we're back on Metacritic. We got the 25 worst ranked games according to critics all over the internet, and now I have to go relive the misery that I went through playing some of these because apparently I hate myself. So here we go. These are the 25 worst rated GameCube games. Let's talk about it. Well, wouldn't you know? Oh, God, fucking, what is, I stepped in something. It's all over the bottom of my fucking shoe. Oh. It's a bonus entry. So in the last videos, the bonus entry was dedicated to games that were tied with the same score as the number 25 game. Well, as it were, there are no games tied with the number 25 game on the GameCube, at least with the way that this list worked out by me skipping over some games due to having already reviewed them on a different console. So, this bonus entry is dedicated to those games. All of these games here, all of these games are dog shit. All of these games would be on this list, except I've already reviewed them, and I played the worst version. So, I just skipped them. Again, it's what I do. And let's just have a small moment of silence for anybody who ever tried to have fun playing any of these games. Okay, well, now that that's done, let's get on to the real list. Starting with number 25, The Ant Bully, 51%. If you've never seen The Ant Bully, you're missing out on nothing. It's an incredibly generic kids movie that flopped in theaters and killed the studio that released it. But, just for the sake of this video, I'll explain the basic storyline. So, some little asshole kid named Lucas is destroying anthills and shit just to be a dick, and then the ants shrink him and force him to live amongst them before he can go back to his own world. So he has to live among the ants and work with them before they let him go back to just being a kid. And if you're keeping track of all that, they forced the child into indentured servitude because he didn't like ants, which are, not one of the most common or annoying pests of all time or anything. Like, Lucas was doing the world a fucking favor, but anyway, the game follows the plot of the movie and puts you in the shoes of the scourge of vermin, Lucas himself. The game looks nice enough, and it's just your basic tie-in platformer for the most part, but a touch of gameplay variance is thrown in there to keep it from getting too monotonous. Now, on top of the platforming sections and basic fetch quests, you've got some racing sections, rail shooting sections, tower defense style combat sections, and several other gameplay styles all kind of mixed in to break up the monotony a little bit. Now I respect the effort that was put into that by the devs trying to break up the sections of the game to make it more fleshed out to where you wouldn't really get bored or feel like things were getting overly repetitive while you were playing through. That's a really good idea. The problem is that none of these sections are made all that well. There are some sections that are decent, such as the racing, but they're immediately followed by bad platforming that's tedious and poorly designed. There's also a lot of mechanics here that don't really make much sense. Like, for example, there's no jump button in a 3D platform. No fucking jump button. Who thought that one up? If you want to jump, you just wander off a ledge and it auto jumps for you. What? Also, that's something that's not even explained to you in the beginning section of the game that serves as the tutorial. So you could just be hard stuck trying to figure out how to get the collectibles you need to advance because you don't know how to jump. It's got a lot of variety, but variety can't make up for lack of fun, and it feels more like work. And that isn't what most people play games for, especially not the kids that this game was aimed at. All said and done, Ant Bully gets a 3 out of 10. There's just not a lot to sink your teeth into. Number 24, Super Monkey Ball Adventure, 51%. Okay, full transparency, I've only played like one Monkey Ball game ever, and I didn't really understand what the hype was about. Most of what I know about this series is based on how incredibly obsessed with it the hardcore fans are. It reminds me of Sonic in that way. I'm not saying that it's a bad series or anything, I've just never really given a shit about it, because it isn't really my type of game. Now that said, I don't really understand why this game is here. It's basically the same as the other games everyone was creaming their pants over, but this one has a storyline and some new gameplay features. So basically, it expanded on a game format that people already loved, added a bunch of new stuff, and then for whatever reason, it got completely shit on by the critics, and apparently the community as well, which I guess I just don't really get. Because from the perspective of a person on the outside looking in, this game is pretty decent. It didn't rock my world or anything, but it's probably more due to me not being a fan of the series in general and less of a problem with the game itself. You still have the challenge mode, which is well made, and you also have a bunch of mini games that are done extremely well, and you have a pretty decently made story mode that actually gave me a reason to give a shit. It plays well, if not a bit touchy or frustrating at times, but I've always kind of gotten the vibe that that's how these games are as a whole, and it's one of the reasons that people like them, so I can't really hold that against it. There are some pretty glaring negatives though. Things like the sound design being both great and completely ass at the same time. Like the soundtrack is basically the standard Donkey Kong 64 Banjo-Kazooie type of, I don't know, happy jungle critter music. You know what the fuck I'm talking about. Anyway, that's great. But then, whenever a monkey is talking to you, you're hit with the same few noises over and over and over again, and there's almost zero variety in the voices. So every character sounds the exact same, and it gets very, and I mean very, repetitive. It's grating after a while, listening to the speech noises. There's also the issue of having basically all the really fun aspects of the game locked up, forcing you to grind challenges or story mode to be able to enjoy what are arguably the best parts of the game. Not the best strat in my not so fucking humble opinion, but hey, to each their own. On a more positive note, from a graphical standpoint, it looks as good as any of the other Super Monkey Ball games do. At least, I don't know, from what I can tell, it does. The story mode has you running little missions for various annoyingly voiced monkeys, mostly consisting of fetch quests, but there is some decent variety mixed in to keep things from getting too boring. I don't know, man, I more or less enjoyed this one, with the exception of the time I sharpened a Q-tip and attempted to stab my own eardrum so I wouldn't have to listen to these godforsaken voice sounds anymore. But other than that, I'm not really sure why this got so much hate. But I'm also not a big fan of the series. So I don't know how the hardcore SMB fans feel about it or why they felt a certain type of way about it. But then again, this is my video, so it doesn't matter how those dweebs feel, okay? They can suck it. Don't care. This is a solid game that has annoyances sprinkled in, but overall, I really don't think it's that bad. I honestly enjoyed it more than the other Super Monkey Ball game I played because it had an adventure mode. I give Super Monkey Ball Adventure a 6 out of 10. It's not great by any means, but it's a perfectly acceptable little kind of niche game. Number 23, Shadow the Hedgehog, 51%. The irony is not lost on me that I have to go from talking about one game that is from a series of rabid and loyal fans straight into another. So some of the things I might say in this entry could potentially piss off some of the Sonic fan base. But you know what? It's your fault for being a fan of the games and not the comics. It's no secret that the Sonic franchise has a, shall we say, erratic history of quality in their games. On one side, you have some incredible games that made people fall in love with the franchise, and on the other side, you have some absolute garbage with everyone's favorite blue hedgehog just plastered on the cover. Now, I'm aware no franchise hits 100% of the time, but Jesus, Harriet Beauregard Christ, Sonic has some fucking dog shit games to carry on his namesake. But partway through the 2000s, Sega decided that they would start a new franchise based in the Sonic universe starring Shadow, who is, for anyone out of the loop, basically just a way more angry and violent Sonic. Now, obviously, there's way more that goes into that, and some Sonic fans out there, if they're watching this, they might get a little bit mad at me, but I'm not gonna do an entire dive into Shadow's backstory because that would be a giant waste of everyone's psych! New segment alert. Here's a bite-sized biography about Shadow, the motherfucking gun-toting, human-killing, Sonic-hating hedgehog. Let's fucking go. Shadow the Hedgehog was created during the production of Sonic Adventure, but didn't actually make his first appearance until Sonic Adventure 2, and he pretty much immediately became insanely popular among Sonic fans, because he's fucking cool. Critics at the time didn't really like him as a character, but those dorks are fucking wrong. He's cool as shit. He's almost as cool as Knuckles. Except for like the Sonic Boom Knuckles where they made him like huge and dumb. That Knuckles sucks. That Knuckles really sucks. We don't talk about that Knuckles. Anyway, the story starts with Gerald Robotnik on the space colony Ark, researching all kinds of crazy shit because he wants to create the ultimate life form so that he can help cure his granddaughter Maria of her incurable immune deficiency. So Gerald, in one of those attempts, creates Shadow. Now Shadow befriends Maria, and they live happily for a short time. Then the government says, we don't really like how you building all these super weapons on this space station. So they raid Ark and they destroy the walking, talking super weapons that Gerald was creating at the time. During the raid, Maria ends up getting shot and killed, taking away the first and only friend Shadow had. Now, before she died, Maria made Shadow promise not to give up on humanity, and she helped him escape to Earth by putting him in an escape pod as she died. After the raid, Gerald, for whatever reason, is incredibly angry about the death of his granddaughter, so he decided, hey, fuck everybody, and he turns Ark into a gigantic fucking world-ending space laser that's gonna ram into the planet and destroy all of humanity. Meanwhile, the government gets a hold of Shadow and puts him in stasis for 50 years, and when he wakes up, he has amnesia and he starts working with Eggman, who just so happens to be the grandson of Gerald. Now, eventually, Shadow remembers his promise to Maria and he helps Sonic, but everybody thinks he's dead after the final battle because he fell back to Earth from outer fucking space. Years down the road, Shadow is found out to be alive, and then, you know it, this little prick went and got amnesia again. But eventually, he recovers his memories and he ends up spending his time protecting humanity, keeping the promise he made to Maria, his first friend. Mini bio done, back to the game. This game takes place during the time where Shadow was suffering from amnesia the second time. Basically, you're making your way through levels, helping one of the 4 different factions in the game with their troubles. Now, depending on the choices that you make throughout the game, there are 10 different endings plus a true ending that you can unlock. That lends itself to a lot of replayability and experimentation throughout a playthrough. I like that. Pretty cool stuff. What isn't cool is the gameplay. The movement sucks. No other way to put it. The movement fucking sucks. And movement is actually definitely the most important part of any Sonic game. Shadow kind of skates around, and I don't know, it makes for these like really finicky controls. The vehicles you get in handle like shit. The homing attack that you can do, it'll send you careening off the screen to your death like 25% of the time you use it. Like, the level design isn't very good either. You're either stuck on rails or you're just getting lost trying to figure out what the fuck you're even supposed to be doing. The third-person shooting mechanics, they work decently at times, and then 5 seconds later are completely useless because there's no lock-on mechanism, and half the time the auto-aim just decides, you don't feel like it. That said, the graphics are fine, and the voice acting and overall sound design is very well done, but overall it's just not a very good game. And while it may have a cult following, for the casual fan, this is a massive disappointment. Oh, and just to be very clear, I am not a casual fan. I have been a huge fucking fan of the Sonic comics since I was a tiny kid. I do enjoy some of the games, but for me, it's more on the comic book side of things. The Sonic comics are actually the reason that I say catch you on the flip side at the end of my videos, because the letter from the editor every month in an issue of Sonic would say, catch you on the flip side, and I've been using that ever since. So, fun fact there. Anyway, this game has a lot of good ideas just stuck in mediocrity, and it would take the world almost 20 years until Shadow got a game that did this much loved characters some justice. Now, I wish I didn't have to do this, but Shadow the Hedgehog gets a 3 out of 10. Number 22. Spirits and Spells, 50%. And here is where we come to the first game on this list that I had never fucking heard of. Zero frame of reference as to what this game even was. Well, as it turns out, it's a cutesy little Crash Bandicoot style game starring two kids trying to save the souls of their friends who have been captured by some headless horseman boogeyman weirdo. And that's all there really is to this game. It's just a Crash knockoff with decent graphics and worse controls. Now, the overall aesthetic of the game itself is very well done, and the character models are nice, but other than that, there isn't really too much positive to focus on. The controls are a bit sluggish, the whole game kind of feels slow, and the puzzles are as simple as just switching your character. Oh, I mean, as long as you can, because since switching between the two playable characters is limited to how many of these special gems you have picked up, meaning if you switch between characters recklessly, you could potentially soft lock yourself on a level, or you can just do what I did several times and just bypass the puzzles or obstacles altogether by just simply jumping around them. The difficulty spikes in this game are pretty extreme, going from mind-numbingly easy to frustratingly hard in the space of less than a minute. Half the time the camera is more of an enemy than the creatures on the screen, who can all one-shot you, by the way. And if you do die, you go all the way back to your last checkpoint, which are pretty far apart, so that's real irritating as well. It's very, very linear, but Crash-style games more or less always kind of are, so I don't know if I can hold that against this game, but it just makes you want to explore things and then it doesn't really let you, which is lame. This game is miserable at its worst and tedious at its best. It's not things you normally want a game to be. That said, the graphics and the vibes of the game, coupled with some half-decent gameplay sections, save it from being a total loss. I wouldn't recommend anybody play this unless you just really want to play a Crash game that doesn't star an Orange Bandicoot, but, you know, do with that what you will. Spirits and Spells gets a 4 out of 10. Not a ton of potential here, but it still didn't live up to it somehow. Number 21, Disney's Magical Mirror starring Mickey Mouse, 50%. As with most games that came before it on this list, this game looks pretty good. It looks really good, actually. Probably the best looking game so far. And there it is. There is every positive thing I have to say about this. You know, before I fully dig into this massive rant that I'm about to go on, I thought that I should say at least one nice thing about the game before cursing the name of everyone involved in its creation. Oh, and by everyone, I mean everyone. All the way back to Walt Disney, because he created Mickey Mouse. And if he had just not done that, then I wouldn't have had to sit through this absolute shit stack of a game. Now see, you couldn't see me just now, but I used air quotes when I said game because this thing is, it barely even qualified, like fucking, oh man. I just realized how irritated I still am by this. So if you couldn't tell already, this is the first game on this list that legitimately fucking pissed me off. I don't even know where to fucking start with this one. So, this game is a point-and-click adventure for the GameCube. I'll say that again, just really run that home. This is a point-and-click adventure game for the fucking GameCube. Don't get me wrong, I'm very well aware that point-and-click games can be done very well on consoles. The Monkey Island games are a great example. The Siberia games are another really good series. Broken Sword is fucking awesome, you know? So when done right, the format actually works very, very well. Okay, I do know that. And I love point-and-click games, dude. I'm a point-and-click type of bitch. So it's even more infuriating that this game sucks so much ass. Dude, this is by a mile, by 10 miles, by 100 country fucking miles. The absolute worst Disney game I've ever fucking played. And it didn't even have to be that way. That's why it's such bullshit. I'd talk about the gameplay, but it's barely even a game. It's fucking Cutscene Simulator 2002. Everything is just some long-winded and boring fucking cutscene that is 100% unnecessary. Everything. You pick up a key or a star, cutscene. You walk halfway across a room, cutscene. You enter a room, you exit a room, or you literally just stand still for too long. Fucking unskippable, stupid fucking cutscene. I wish I was exaggerating when I say this, but at one point, I started a 10-minute timer. And in doing so, I found that I got to be in control and actually do something that resembled playing a game for 1 minute and 16 seconds. Out of 10 minutes. 10 minutes! So that makes for, hold on, let me do some mental math calculations. Beep, beep, boop, boop. Oh yeah, 12 fucking percent. That means 88% of the time I was keeping track of my gameplay, I was sitting through these dog shit fucking cutscenes. And make no mistake, these are not important story-related things. Don't worry, we'll talk about those in a second. No. These are things like unlocking a door, riding a train, or better yet, just making the simple mistake of clicking on a window to see what happens. It's ridiculous. The actual story is told through cutscenes without any real dialogue, so you kind of just guess what is happening and wander around some weird bizarro world mansion aimlessly, trying to solve these mindlessly tedious puzzles, and then you come to the realization that while you've been doing this, you've been making your way slowly closer to death, and you could have been doing anything else with your life, but you're a fucking big dumb dipshit, and you chose to play this stupid fucking game. And if this had just been a bad port of a game from the PC to the GameCube, it wouldn't make me so goddamn angry. But this game was designed specifically for and only released on the GameCube. That's even fucking worse. I can't, I can't stand fucking anything about this game, man. Even the music sucks. And that's like Disney's thing, is always having great music. Couldn't even get that right, man. What the fuck? Stupid fucking idea followed by even worse execution. Boring, it's slow, it's tiring. Dude, I'd rather get in a keg stand and headbutt competition with somebody from Boston College than play this game again, because at least then when I had a headache, I'd have a decent fucking buzz. Disney can take their magical mirror, Mickey Mouse, and their stupid alliteration title and shove it right up their ass, dude. 0 out of 10. God damn it. Number 20, Legends of Wrestling. 50%. So, I had this game for the PS2 back in the day. I got it at a thrift shop a couple years after it came out. Paid, I think, maybe $5 for it, and I still felt ripped off. Unsurprisingly, the GameCube version is not only just as bad, it's worse. The graphics are noticeably worse than those of its counterparts, and the game speed feels like it's almost lagging a little bit with some pretty glaring input issues. The good thing about this game is that the roster is a pretty decent size, so a lot of wrestlers who weren't signed to WWE at the time got at least a half-decent payday for lending their likenesses to the game, especially since Acclaim was known to overpay people for licensing deals and stuff like that. Don't worry, we'll talk about Acclaim in a second. Don't think I'd miss out on a chance to shit on those guys. That's about the only good thing I could say about this one. Well, that and the fact that the creator wrestler is a lot better than I expected it to be. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's still dog shit, but I thought it would be a lot worse. So, it's ugly, and it has some performance issues, but how's the overall gameplay? Well, it's just about as good as everything else in this game. Just kidding, it's worse. You see, if you have seen my video on the worst games for the PlayStation, you will know how I feel about Acclaim, and specifically how I feel about any wrestling game made or developed or published by them. Because they're all fucking dog shit. And if you legitimately enjoyed Attitude or Warzone, you probably also listen to those fucking jabronis called Disturbed.
And that was your once per video reminder that Disturbed fucking sucks.
Nah, but for real, the Acclaim engine is dog shit. And guess what? They're still using it. Still. They tried, and maybe almost kind of succeeded in updating it a little bit, but it's still the same clunky, terrible fucking engine that they made 5 other dog shit games with. The movement sucks, the movesets are limited, the actual wrestling part is more like a bad arena fighter than a wrestling game, the career mode is incredibly repetitive, and the matches themselves get incredibly old after only like 2 or 3. It's just nothing here to get excited or happy about besides seeing a bunch of old legends in a game. It's all just so disappointing. And throwing the names and kind of similar-ish looking faces onto these guys into this game, it's just more disrespectful than anything else. This is nothing more than a good roster with shitty graphics and worse gameplay. Legends of Wrestling gets a 1 out of 10. It would be hard to believe that this game got multiple sequels, but honestly, this is Acclaim we're talking about, so I guess, it just shouldn't fucking surprise anyone, especially not me. Bullshit-ass company. Number 19, X-Men. The official game, 50%. This is an interesting entry for me because I recently played the PS2 version of this game and it wasn't bad. So I'm kind of curious as to why this is here. Come to find out, I couldn't really figure out why it was here. This game is pretty fun, dude. I can't believe it got a score this low. Now, it's not going to move mountains or anything, but I have fun. It looks great, it plays well, and it has more variety than most games of its kind. That said, there are some issues we got to talk about. For example, Wolverine's levels do tend to get a little bit repetitive by the time you get towards the end, especially when the combat is super simple, which it is. Some of the controls are a little bit janky, but once you get used to them, it's manageable. Basically, this game is separated into 3 different types of missions. You got Wolverine levels where you fight through a bunch of bad guys and usually have some sort of boss fight at the end. Typical beat 'em up style levels. After that, you've got the Iceman levels, which are basically flight missions, but you're just sliding around on a beam of ice, shooting shit out of the sky. Pretty decently fun. But the real meat and potatoes here is the Nightcrawler levels, which are stealth/combat missions with platforming thrown in to take advantage of the teleportation ability that you have. Now, as I said before, the Wolverine levels can get a little bit tiresome by the time you get to the end of them, but the other two are hella fun. The Nightcrawler missions are awesome, man. You just teleport all over the place, you're stringing together a bunch of sick combat skills. It's overall just a good time. The rest of the game is pretty standard, but that isn't a horrible thing. I had quite a bit of fun going through and upgrading my team, choosing between mission branches, and playing through the story mode in general. Not being able to go back and complete missions on other paths is annoying, and some level designs do get kind of boring, but overall, I don't think that this should be on this list whatsoever. Honestly though, this game would have been better if it was just an entire game based around Nightcrawler. That would have been fucking rad. If his missions were the entire game, this would be a 7 or an 8, but as it stands, X-Men the official game only gets a 6 out of 10. Now I want a Nightcrawler game. That'd be fucking sick. Number 18. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 Battle Nexus. 49%. Knew this was coming. Now, as I said in my last video, all the home console games based on the TMNT show from the early 2000s are pretty ass. And lo and behold, I have to play another one for another worst games list. Wow, can't imagine that. Feels pretty fucking bad though, dude. Once again, I'm playing as the Turtles, some of my absolute favorite comic book characters of all time. And once again, I'm bummed out because the game they're starring in sucks ass. It's truly frustrating for me being such a huge fan of this franchise because for a good 30 fucking years, the Turtles didn't get any respect when it came to video games. The Turtles franchise was just repeatedly used as a license that companies could take, slap the logo on, make a mediocre game out of, and then cash the checks that followed. And this game is no different. Just like every other generic licensed game from the 2000s, this is your basic as you can get hack and slash game with bad controls and terrible mechanics. Mechanics that are not only implemented poorly, but also don't add anything to the game in the first place, really. There isn't too much I can say about this one because the complaints I have are the same as Mutant Melee. It looks okay, but once again, the movement's just clunky. The combat is one button and repetitive, and on top of that, it's hard to even hit the guys that you're aiming at half the time. You just like fly past them. Like, I don't know. They've got puzzles that are barely even qualified to be called that. One cool thing is the way you can line up the turtles in whatever order suits you, and you can switch between them pretty seamlessly. It's a great idea, and if it was part of a better game, it would be really cool, but unfortunately, it's attached to this. Also, all 4 of your characters share the same health, so unless you need to solve a certain puzzle, and by that I mean just switching to a character to like open a door or break a box, yeah, switching between them is just kind of pointless. The best part of this game is legitimately the cutscenes between the levels, which are all clips from the show, loosely following the events of most of the second season, which is actually really good and deserves a watch. You should watch this show. It was actually very, very, very good. The tournament mode is another great idea, but again, poor execution makes it almost no fun, except for being able to play a slasher. That was pretty sick. I really wanted to like this one, man, and I gave it every opportunity to give me something that would make me go, oh wow, that's actually pretty sick, but after a couple hours, I was just over it. Going back and playing these old Ninja Turtle games makes me really, really appreciate that in recent years, like, we've been treated to several amazing games based on this series, and it seems like we're getting back to the point where if you see TMNT on the cover of a game, you don't have to assume that it's bad, and that's good. That's a really good thing. That said, all of that doesn't help out this game in the slightest. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 Battle Nexus gets a 2 out of 10. It seems like better days for the franchise are ahead, so hopefully I can finally stop looking back at the darker times like this. Number 17. Monster 4x4 Masters of Metal. 49%.
Sunday. Thrills, chills, and bone-crushing spills. Demolition derbies, mud bogging, and the main event, Bigfoot versus Craze. You'll pay for the whole seat, but you'll only need the edge. Hot dogs for the whole family, kids getting free. Only on Sunday.
Listen, this will be the most white trash shit I've said in years, but monster truck rallies are literally the coolest fucking thing ever. Just legit, the most overly American bullshit of all time, and I don't mean that as a bad thing. It's just fucking explosions, and cars getting crushed, and demolition derbies, and mud bogging, and giant trucks jumping over buses, and doing backflips, and pyros going off. It's so fucking rad. It's the coolest shit ever, man. I don't care. If you disagree, you're fucking wrong. It's awesome, man. It's so sick. It's so fucking sick. Like, as a little kid, the only thing that was cooler than dinosaurs was fucking monster trucks, dude. Come on. That was it. So obviously with the massive popularity that they had back in the day and somehow still slightly maintain, video games would follow them before too long. There have been a bunch of licensed Monster Jam games released over the years, and even more unlicensed games just based on the general concept. And unfortunately, very few of them have ever been any good. So when I saw this pop up on the list, I more or less knew what I was getting into. And come to find out, I was completely right. I was stoked when I saw that this was an officially licensed Monster Jam game, because that means that I can play as the motherfucking GOAT, Gravedigger. So even if the game's terrible, there's still a little bright point for me. Until I loaded up the truck selection screen and found out he's fucking locked. Why? Well, besides having my heart crushed into a million pieces, I decided I'd move on to the actual gameplay, which wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it would be, to be perfectly honest. The game consists of either running exhibition events or going through the career mode, both of which feature just 3 types of different things to do. You have stadium races, which makes you race through a stadium course 1v1 against another driver in a tournament to get series points. And then you have the outdoor races, which are standard checkpoint-based races, kind of like GTA style, I guess. You know, you just get there, bink, another one pops up somewhere. Finally, you have the stunt sections, which feature you doing a jump or a stunt or some kind of dumb shit just to earn some cash to upgrade your vehicle. None of them are exceptionally bad, but none of them are all that great either. The stunts leave a lot to be desired, and the stadium races get a little bit boring after the first round or two. Outdoor races can just be That said, the driving mechanics are way better than I thought they would be. Surprisingly good, actually. Using your boost at the right time and drifting around corners is pretty smooth, and honestly, it did feel dope as I was playing. I gotta give it up for that, because most monster truck games don't really feel like you're driving one. It feels like you're just driving a normal car that they made bigger. This game didn't do that, and I gotta give credit where it's due. Now, if the driving didn't get boring within the first 15-20 minutes of booting up the game, then it would have been a nice touch as well, but since choosers can be choosers, I am going to bitch about it. I started up career mode, and they make you play as this guy called Rookie, the biggest dweeb out of all of the possible characters that you could choose, and you go through the story of trying to win the Monster Jam Championship Series. It's a little lame, but it's not overly bad until you look at it. Then it all goes downhill very, very fast. Look at this garbage, dude. This would have been unacceptable on the PlayStation. This is insanely bad. They just shouldn't have done cutscenes if they were going to make them look like this. That's fucking ridiculous. Outside of the terrible character models, the graphics are actually fairly good, which is a little odd to me, but in a game like this where the environments and vehicles looking good matters way more than the characters, I can't really fault them for prioritizing those. Honestly, after a while of playing this, I just kind of ended up bored. It isn't miserable or anything, it's just, If they could have expanded on the game's modes just a little bit and made it feel less repetitive, it would have worked wonders, but that isn't the case. So in the end, we have an incredibly formulaic Monster Jam game that has some pros and more cons. Monster 4x4, Masters of Metal, would get a 5 out of 10, but they locked Gravedigger, and then they didn't even tell me what I needed to do to unlock him, so they get a point knocked off for that. 4 out of 10, dickheads. Number 16. The Scorpion King, Rise of the Acadian, 49%. So, whenever I see a movie tie-in game on one of these lists, I don't have a very good feeling about it. At this point, we all know how bad most of the early 2000s tie-in games were. To be perfectly clear, the quality of the film or TV show that the game is based on doesn't really dictate whether the game itself is good or not. That said, being based on something that already sucks isn't a very good start to a project. And yes, The Scorpion King, while a cool mummy tie-in, does fucking suck. Now don't get me wrong, when it came out, I was super stoked because cheesy 90s and 2000s action films are a weak point for me. But even then, if you had told me in 2002 that The Rock would end up becoming the biggest movie star in the world, I would have laughed in your fucking face. Right in your fucking face. That movie was just objectively not very good. I'll put it this way, if this game wasn't on the list and I saw it sitting on a store shelf, I would still automatically assume that it fucking sucks. As would most sane and lucid people who survived the first 10 years of The Rock's acting career. But it's not fair if I just harshly judge a game without playing it. So I need to put my bias to the side and give this game the same fair chance that I give every other game that I play. So I sat down, I booted it up, and I immediately got slapped in the face by fucking Godsmack. Good thing this song still absolutely fucks. Although, has anyone else ever noticed that most hard rock bands never say me? Like it's always kind of weird. People used to make fun of NSYNC, Justin Timberlake for doing that, but apparently if you wear ill-fitting leather jackets and bootcut Wranglers, you're in the clear. Who would have thought? Anyway, I hit new game, I pressed the normally sized A button on my Xbox controller and loaded into the actual game itself. Guys. Even the intro looks like shit, come on, man. But hey, maybe the gameplay will make up for the... Nope, the control scheme is okay, but the actual movement in combat sucks. The camera is once again terrible. It's never pointing where you need it to be. Every time you exit a door, it is facing towards like your face and away from the enemies that are already coming to attack you. It's so, and it turns slow and you can't speed it up. So by the time you rotate it, you're just being attacked by like 3 or 4 people. It's fucking so stupid. All the enemies are the same throughout each level, but sometimes they change the color of the shirt or a turban, make them bigger maybe to pretend that they have variety. The game consists of you working your way through the story of the Scorpion King's journey while he was alive, becoming an assassin for the Akkadian Empire, which totally makes sense because if you were to build somebody to be the perfect assassin, you definitely want them to be like 6'4" and 250 pounds of fucking muscle. But it's neither here nor there, I guess. This dude moves and controls like he's that big. Just a big doofy fuck who doesn't ever do what you want him to do. You make your way through the tutorial level and you go on your first mission and it's all downhill. The tutorial is, by the way, the best part of the game because as you're playing through it, you're still stupid enough to believe that this game might actually end up being fun. And then you play your first mission and it's all over. This game is so fucking boring. You move from small bland area to small bland area, fighting the same guys over and over again just to open the next door, go into the next area, and do the exact same thing all over again. It is repetitive to the point where it's almost comical. There's just no imagination here. It's got the format of a 2D beat 'em up in a 3D world. It's like a fucking Streets of Rage game. You move in one direction, you're beating up the same guys over and over, and you just do the same thing in the next area. It's painfully linear, and it's ugly. And it's overall just not a very enjoyable experience. Also, The Rock lent his voice to the game, but I think they might have just used the audio from the movie because the voice you have during the levels is not The Rock. Listen to this.
King Ermet, I come to begin my test.
The palace doors are bolted. I need to find another way in.
That dude didn't even fucking try. They didn't even try at all, man. Damn. The Scorpion King Rise of the Akkadian gets a 2 out of 10. Legitimately one of the worst tie-in games I've ever played. Glad I never ended up getting this as a kid because I would have been so fucking bummed. Number 15. One Piece. Pirates Carnival. 49%. So as I've said before, whenever I come across a game I've never played, or moreover, never even heard of, I don't research the game at all. I don't watch gameplay, I don't visit the Wikipedia page, I don't even look at the back cover of the game if it's attached to the scan of the cover, because I don't want to know anything about it. I want to go in blind and I want to find out what the game is all about for myself. That said, obviously I will make some assumptions about what a game is based on the cover, the franchise, or just purely a gut feeling. I'm right about 75% of the time in my assumptions, but sometimes I'm way fucking off, and this is one of those times. You see, anytime my eyes find themselves resting on the cover art of any game based on an anime, I assume it's one of two things. It's either a generic anime arena fighter with characters from whatever show it's based on, which is the case about 95% of the goddamn time, or it's some kind of open world-ish action RPG. So when I booted this game up and I saw the opening cutscene, I was immediately shocked. When I saw little chibi versions of the One Piece crew, I knew exactly what this game was. I knew it in my soul. This was a Mario Party clone, and it was based in the One Piece universe, which doesn't sound awful on paper, but after playing the fucking soul-stealing abomination that was Shrek Super Party, I wanted no part of another shitty goddamn Mario Party ripoff. But rules are rules, lists are lists, content is content, and those YouTube checks don't write themselves, so gotta do what I gotta do, right? So I started up playing a game as the only character anybody should ever play as, Zoro, chose the first map, and loaded into what I assumed would be another miserable experience. Thankfully, I was wrong. As a matter of fact, I was very wrong. I don't get why this game is on this list at all. This is a surprisingly solid Mario Party clone. It's different enough to set itself apart from all the other garbage that was popping up all over the place. Like, this is fun. You pick your favorite Straw Hat and you load into the game. Now, the game itself doesn't use the Monopoly-style board game format that Mario Party and most of its imitators use. It uses its own pretty unique system. It's all based on panels, which I'm going to be referring to as tiles from now on because it just makes more sense to me in my own head because I'm an idiot. The number of tiles and shape they form changes from map to map, but the basic gameplay remains the same. The goal is to have the most money at the end of the game, but getting there isn't as straightforward as you would think. As soon as the game starts, you play a minigame to see who gets to take control of the center tile on the board and go first, which is a way more interesting form of finding out who goes first than just rolling dice. Now, after you find out who goes first, you take turns flipping tiles and trying to take control of the board. There are 3 types of tiles that you can flip, all featuring unique characters from the show, and each of the 3 types acting in its own way. There are minigame tiles where you battle it out to win control of the tile and some extra money for winning. There's event tiles that trigger something, maybe awarding bonus money or switching tiles with somebody or just straight up stealing something from someone else. And then you have the captain tiles, which trigger what is more or less a boss fight minigame with the player who flipped over the tile taking over as the captain and the other 3 trying to defeat each of them. Each captain has their own unique minigames, and being able to control their tiles gives you a gigantic advantage on the game board. Speaking of, just because you have the most tiles at one point doesn't mean you always will, because on top of taking control of tiles, this game also plays like Othello, meaning that if I capture a space, any tiles from any other player caught in between 2 of mine are now flipped and given to me, meaning that you have to strategize, especially late game, on what tiles you want to flip, because one wrong move and you could lose half of yours to another player before your turn is even over, which, to be fair, is aggravating, but also calls for more well thought out moves than most games of this kind. The graphics look good for what they are. It's just big head, chibi One Piece characters, although I will say some of the pictures that they used for the character images during their dialogue are not always the best quality, but it's kind of like a little thing to fucking nitpick at. Speaking of the dialogue though, something that I thought was really cool was how much unique conversations are had between different characters. And what I mean by that is depending on which character flips over a tile, they have their own unique conversation with that character that helps flesh out either one of their backstories. For example, the dialogue between Zoro and Buggy is different than what's between Buggy and Luffy. Same goes for when you have to team up with somebody or somebody steals something from you. Whichever characters are placed dictates the conversation that's going to happen, making for hundreds if not thousands of unique interactions between characters. Interactions that I forgot to mention are also fully voice acted. There's no part of this game that doesn't have a complete voiceover, which is really cool, but also really intense for a party game like this. Just the amount of work that went into something as simple as the character interactions shows how much they actually cared about the source material. Something that doesn't always hold true. Probably more often than not doesn't. The minigames themselves are well made and pretty fun, with a couple exceptions, but there aren't a ton of them, so some might get repetitive, especially with the volume that you play during any given game. But as I said, since they're for the most part pretty fun, it's not really a big deal. One negative that I do have is that there is a huge amount of RNG in this game. And I'm aware that RNG just plays a part in every party game, but this one leans into it very heavily, to the point where it can become rather frustrating. Now, other than those pretty small qualms, this game is pretty fucking dope. There's stuff to unlock and something close to 100 different character tiles, so no 2 games are ever the same, adding a lot of variety to the way that you update your strategy throughout a game. You can also track which characters you've come across. There's all kinds of stats you can look into. At the end of each game, there's also like 10 different bonus awards for all kinds of stuff, which can really add to the drama at the end, and I love that because bonus stars are always one of my favorite parts of a Mario Party game, so this game expanding on that even further is a nice touch. There's a lot crammed into this one, and even playing solo, this was fun. I could see a group of friends and I going hard as fuck on this back in the day. This is one of the better party games that I've played in some time, which might not be the highest bar, but still good. No idea why people scored this so low, but I think those dweebs are fucking wrong. Wrong as hell. With a few more minigames and less RNG dependence, this could have been a very, very strong game, but they do unfortunately drag it down a little bit. One Piece Pirates Carnival gets a 7 out of 10. It's a solid Mario Party style game that branches out and does enough different to set itself apart from all the other clones. I can't be mad at that. Number 14. Dragon Ball Z Sagas. 48%.
2 anime games in a row. Oh boy.
Ugh. Last time I played a Dragon Ball Z game, it was Ultimate Battle 22, and I wanted to dropkick a fucking puppy afterwards, so hopefully this doesn't bring out those same feelings. Now, going back after I played this and doing some research later on, I found out that this was the very first Dragon Ball Z game to do a lot of things. It was the first DBZ game developed by a non-Japanese company, or to be released on a non-Japanese console. It was also the only Dragon Ball Z game ever released on the original Xbox. Now, all of that is slightly interesting, but it would have been a lot cooler if this game just didn't fucking suck. Dragon Ball Z Sagas, surprise, surprise, fucking sucks dick. This game blows. I'm fucking pissed because I like Dragon Ball Z. I love DBZ and I wanted it to be good, but it just fucking isn't. And it's just not. It's a fucking bummer. Let's play a little game here though. Let's have anyone who didn't play Sagas take a wild guess as to what this game is about. Here's a hint. This game is as formulaic as you could possibly get for a game based on Goku and his pals. Okay, well, now we'll see you after a short word from our sponsors.
Get in on all the sounds and action of the WCW with the Electronic Nitro Wrestling Arena. You activate the sound. Hear the call of the Wolfpack as Kevin Nash struts up the runway. Launch Macho Man from the top turnbuckle. Hit the ropes and hear the action as you fire Goldberg across the ring.
It sounds just like I'm at a match.
Lower in Sting from the rafters. Hear the count as you pin your opponent. This is no ordinary ring. It's the best WCW wrestling ring ever.
Who's next?
The new WCW Electronic Nitro Wrestling Arena. Figures sold separately. Batteries not included.
That's gotta be the wrong ad. I could have sworn it was supposed to be me shilling some shitty mobile game. Huh. Win some, lose some, I guess. If you guessed the concept of Dragon Ball Z Sagas was playing through different sagas of Dragon Ball Z, congratulations. You've won. And you may ask, what have you won? Is it that super sick WCW ring that has sound effects and a bunch of other cool shit that I definitely wanted really bad as a kid but never got? Nope, no, you definitely don't get that. But your reward is equally awesome. Your prize is that you don't have to play Dragon Ball Z Sagas. And if you didn't guess correctly, you're a fucking idiot, because playing through the different sagas of Dragon Ball Z is pretty much what you do in every fucking DBZ game ever fucking made. I don't know what to tell you. Anyway, as formulaic as that concept is, done correctly, it's a concept that works. It's worked a bunch of times. Games like the Budokai trilogy, games like the Legacy of Goku series, they're amazing games that all follow the same basic storylines, but they do so in a way that's engaging and extremely fun. Sagas does not do that. Sagas doesn't even get fucking close. Just for reference also, all 6 of the games that I previously just mentioned had been released by the time that Sagas came out, just to be clear. This game fucking sucks. The graphics are decent when it comes to the character models, but the environments are empty and boring. It's just, ugh. It plays like a level-based beat 'em up, because it is. But it's like the most basic one you can think of. You make your way through bland, empty levels, you fight the same enemies over and over, and then you fight a boss at the end. You can collect tokens and capsules to upgrade your character, which is good in theory, but again, makes levels even more tedious because if you miss one of the collectibles, you have to slowly backtrack through a level to find it. Also, the camera sucks. Since you can't control it at all, if you're just out in front of a hostile character, like say in a boss fight where they're warping all over the place, you're completely blind. You have no idea where they are because they're just off your screen half the fucking time. The combat is super basic. You have a punch combo, a kick combo, and a ki blast. And you can unlock signature moves and power-ups, but for the most part, you will just be using your basic combos. What sucks about that is if you finish your combo to deal the most damage, you send the character you're fighting flying away. So then you have to slowly fly over there to finish him off, which is easier said than done because the dog shit controls of these games. So the strategy I found was ending my combos early so there wouldn't be any knockback and I could end the super repetitive fights as fast as possible because you get sick of fighting the same enemies over and over and over again for levels at a time. There are only about 6 to 7 basic enemies in the entire game, so you can have fun with that. The boss fights aren't very unique. They all play pretty similar. It's just slightly different movesets, but nothing really sets one apart from any of the others. I don't know, there's just nothing here that doesn't suck, except for the things that really suck. The combat is slow, the movement is bad, the graphics are, it's just frustrating. This game is just another example of how someone can take a great license and just run that bitch straight into the ground for no fucking reason, apparently, other than just to do it. Like, I don't even get, like, the fucking point of this, honestly. Dragon Ball Z Sagas gets a 2 out of 10. It's just a frustrating mess, man. Number 13, Spyro, Enter the Dragonfly, 48%. So, yeah, there's probably going to be a lot of people to get very upset about this, but I'm just going to come out and say it. This game doesn't deserve to be on this list. I know. Hear me out, though, okay? I am aware of the rushed development of the game and how problematic it was when it came out and it was an unfinished mess. Yeah, because I had that game, okay? I owned the PS2 version of this game and it was complete garbage. Horrible load times, super unfinished game-breaking glitches. Like, it was a broken mess. The GameCube version, however, is not nearly as bad. A lot of the bugs and a lot of the glitches didn't make their way over to the GameCube version of the game. Either they cleaned it up a little bit or it's just got something to do with the hardware. But either way, it plays better than the PS2 version. Adding on top of that, when you play it on an emulator, like I have been, it actually runs the frame rate that it's supposed to. So it doesn't lag and it doesn't stutter like the console versions did back in the day. Now, seeing as I've never actually played this on a physical GameCube, might be kind of unfair for me to say this, but I still don't think this deserves to be here. It actually plays really well. The main complaint I have now is that it's just short. There's only like 7 or 8 levels in the entire game. It could be a lot better. But again, because it was rushed out, this is what we got. And honestly, I don't know, man. I kind of like this shit. I beat it. I 100%ed it. Well, you have to 100% it to beat it. But anyway, it was a fun time. I enjoyed it. Honestly, if you're ever going to play this game, just play it on a GameCube emulator. That's what you need to do, because that is the only way that you'll probably ever be able to enjoy this game. That being said, I am going to give this a 6 out of 10 because I did have a bunch of fun playing it. Even though if I played it on an actual system, it would probably be a laggy, broken mess. But it was not when I played it, and so that is what I'm going to judge this on. My video, my rules suck one. If it was longer, I would have probably given this a 7 or an 8. But as it stands, because of its short length, yeah, 6 out of 10 is perfectly fair. But under no circumstances should you ever play the PS2 version of this game. Don't do it. Just, you will be better if you do not do that. Number 12, Disney's Hide and Sneak, 48%. I had no idea what this game was. Turns out it's a stealth game where you play as either Mickey or Minnie trying to save the other one. So basically, this game is Metal Gear Mickey. It's not a terrible concept, but the execution is, shall we say, subpar at best. Now, the actual game mechanics are interesting, but poorly implemented, and to the point where it's just like janky. It doesn't control horribly, but it's not smooth at all. Everything about this game, with the exception of the graphics, is just kind of bleh. Nothing is overly horrendous, but none of it is good either. This is one of the most mediocre games I've ever played, with a couple of really big negatives. One bad thing is that it's very short. 2 hours and you can beat this game. I doubt even the kids who were the target demo for this game would have had any trouble getting through it in an afternoon. The puzzles, and I use that term incredibly lightly, are super basic to the point of being almost mindless. There's not much of a challenge at any point, and there's even less engaging gameplay. The main thing that this game gets wrong is just being straight up boring. It's like exceedingly boring. It's slow, methodical stealth gameplay starring Mickey Mouse. Like that's just a bad combination. Does that seem like a genre that young kids are gonna get behind? Just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I've played worse stealth games than this before, but this one is unfortunate because it doesn't fail miserably at most of the things that it tries. It just doesn't get any of them right. The length of the game and the boredom that it caused me leaves me no choice but to give Hide and Sneak a 3 out of 10. It's just not fun, which is a shame, but it's just a fucking kind of dumb idea. Number 11, Catwoman, 47%. Man, this movie sucked. Well, we all know that. So, just like the Scorpion King, I had 0 positive expectations going into this one, and for the most part, again, I was right. I will give credit where credit is due. This game is better than the movie that it was based on, so if nothing else, there's something positive that you can take away from this. It looks pretty good, and the controls are fairly intuitive, but it falls flat when it comes to the gameplay itself. There's basically only 2 types of levels. One is combat-focused beat-em-up levels, and the others are platforming and exploration-based. Now, that sounds basic. It is. But it's not necessarily awful by itself. The problem arises when you realize that the combat is stiff and poorly delivered, and the platforming levels are way too long, way too linear, and frustratingly wonky. You're going to spend 2 to 3 minutes getting back to where you were before a fall, just to fall again and again, because you can't land one jump. When that happens, it's usually with little fault of your own and more the fault of the camera instantly snapping to a different direction or just working against you and the platforming mechanics being more or less just complete dog shit. Now, not being able to first try a section of a game isn't terrible, it's not horrible, but that's when it's based on user error, not just because the game is fighting you tooth and nail to be unenjoyable. The combat missions are too short and the platforming levels are too long. You're just wandering through generic areas, more or less on rails. The level design is just another flaw. A lot of the levels are very weirdly set up. You'll be basically going in circles through the same areas just to trigger one thing, then go back to the start, then take a new route that is more or less the same thing to end up in the same area you already were. I don't know, it's just a real weird with the setup of some of these levels. It's like boring platforming. Like that's not good. I'll admit though, some of the things Catwoman did are cool. The whip mechanics you use the C-stick to control during both combat and platforming sections, and some of the unique platforming moves themselves were well thought out. The only problem is the actual usage of them, which is, well, yeah, kind of the whole fucking point. This was clearly a rush title to accompany a dog shit movie, but it still falls pretty flat. That said, it isn't the worst game I've played of its kind, and it's far from the worst game on this list, so I'm giving Catwoman a 4 out of 10. If they could have let you fight more often, it would have been a little bit more enjoyable, but alas, 'tis not the case. Number 10, Tetris Worlds, 47%. Gonna be perfectly honest here, guys. Not a huge Tetris dude. I don't mind it, but I just rarely go out of my way to play it. More of a bubble bobble guy myself, but I obviously know how important Tetris is to gaming and how insanely popular it is with a lot of people, even if it's not totally up my alley. Chasing a high score has never really been my thing. But anyway, there's been about a dozen attempts to remix Tetris, updating it to current audiences, and well, most of them have been pretty awful. Now, if you're thinking, what if Tetris had a storyline? You'd think that would fix it maybe, right? Yeah? No, not even close. This is the weirdest shit I've ever seen a puzzle game do. Bro, the Tetris blocks have eyes. They can talk. Also, apparently they have an entire society across the goddamn galaxy on a planet that is, for some reason, doomed. So now they need to find a new place to live. And how do you help them find that new home? Why, playing Tetris, of course. Lots and lots of Tetris. With very, very weird voiceovers that sound like 1-900 hotline operator voices.
Single. Triple.
It's all just very weird. The gameplay itself is just Tetris, I guess. There's not even really any power-ups or any new gameplay mechanics to unlock. The basis of this is just plain old Tetris. And if you want to play that, you can just go play the original. And that was over like a decade old at this point. They put a new coat of paint on an aging game and expected people to not be disappointed. Like, come on, you can't just reskin an old game and say, look, it's totally new and different. That's not how this shit works. Bold strategy, Cotton. We'll see how it pays out for him. Well, oof. All told, this is just Tetris. Shittier, for sure, but at its core, it's still just Tetris. So I can't really give it an overly bad score because the base of it is strong, even if it had been 12 years since the original had come out. Tetris Worlds gets a 5 out of 10. A ton of mediocrity held together by a solid, if not dated, foundation. Number 9, Disney's PK, Out of the Shadows, 46%. Jesus Christ, how many goddamn Disney games are on this list? I never realized how many Disney games were apparently terrible until I started making these videos. But then I guess it does make sense because they gotta have some shitters. I mean, the amount of games that are based on Disney movies and shows and other assorted things that they do, you can't expect all of them to be good. But still, damn, Disney, get your shit together. Anyway, I had a very small knowledge of what PK was before playing this game and then looking into it. I knew of the character, but not the actual lore or history behind it. As it turns out, PK, or, and excuse me if I butcher this, Paparinik, started out as an Italian comic about Donald Duck's alter ego, who becomes a superhero. He first appeared all the way back in 1969, nice, and then became a fully standalone comic in 1996, and is still going strong today. I gotta keep it a stack. For a weird offshoot comic created in Italy and not getting an official English translation until like 2016, that's pretty dope. So, at some point, Disney decided that they should make a video game based on the character and fully introduce it to audiences outside of Italy. This game got shit on pretty hard, but to be perfectly honest, it isn't all that bad. It's a very toned-down third-person shooter with platforming and some basic puzzle-solving aspects. All in all, it's actually fairly solid. It looks good, the gunplay works well, and the platforming and power-ups are both well thought out and implemented correctly into the game. The levels switch up right when they start to feel a little bit repetitive, and the replay value of trying to 100% any of the missions is a nice touch thrown in. I honestly can't grasp what made this flop so hard with critics, but I had a decent time playing through. Now, there are some low points, the main two being the sound design and the lack of camera control, but once I got used to how the camera worked, it got a lot easier to deal with, even though it's still a staying on an otherwise pretty decent game. Unlike most games on this list, the platforming and movement is actually solid, like really solid, if not basic, but again, this was designed for kids, so not having insanely complex movement isn't a fucking bad thing. This game is pretty short though, which is a big downside, and it does knock it down a bit, but overall this game is not nearly as bad as its score and ranking on this list would have you think. I give PK Out of the Shadows a solid 6 out of 10. It would probably be a 7 if it was a little bit longer, but either way, it was a pretty fun little playthrough for me. No huge complaints on this one. Number 8. Yu-Gi-Oh! The False-Bound Kingdom, 44%. Yu-Gi-Oh! Was never really my card game of choice, but I did play several of the handheld games, and I watched the show every day after I got home from school for years. So while I wouldn't consider myself a hardcore fan, I do enjoy me some duels. That was fucking the absolute lamest shit I've done in ages. I should probably cut that out. Yeah, fuck it. Anyway, I was surprised when this game wasn't based on the card game like most of the Yu-Gi-Oh titles have always been. And after playing it, I can see why they normally stick to that format, because this shit is hot ass, yo. Whew. Man, this shit sucks a fat one. When you start up the game, you pick between either playing as Yugi or Kaiba and playing through their respective storylines. So obviously, I picked Kaiba because that dude always has that shit the fuck on. Look at the drip, goddamn. Once I did that, I realized why this game is rated the way that it is. Basic gist of it is that you're stuck in a game and you need to battle your way out of it. So you receive some missions and start on your way. You customize your squad, you're picking 3 cards who will represent you in battle, and you start heading towards villages or strongholds to either occupy or conquer. Now I'm going to play this for you in real time. Watch how fast your characters deploy and move towards their objective. Look at that. Oh yeah, look at that. Look how far. Yep. You gotta be fucking kidding me. You spend almost more time moving to the battles than actually battling. I say almost because the battles are also agonizingly slow. The whole fucking game just fucking crawls by. Everything is brutally slow. The cutscenes and dialogue are long-winded, the movement takes forever, the battles take so long, it feels like a war of attrition more than anything else. Oh, and the battles don't go until someone wins. Each card or monster that you're using has only a certain amount of attacks that it can do in a battle. So once all of them have used all of their attacks, the battle just ends. So to beat somebody, you have to battle them multiple times in a row until you've knocked out all 3 of their monsters. Meaning you not only have to sit through long and boring battles, you have to sit through the same long and boring battles multiple times to win and advance in the mission. It's insane. What a terrible fucking idea. What a horrible execution. I couldn't believe what I was playing. People designed this, play tested it, and said, oh yeah, this will make the fans happy. The fucking audacity to put this out and charge money for it. The absolute gall of whoever made this is almost impressive. What isn't impressive is the graphics, because not only is this game boring, it's super fucking ugly too. Nothing here was done well besides the leveling system and how you can organize your teams, but I couldn't wait to be done with this one. Fuck this game, dude. Yu-Gi-Oh! The Falsebound Kingdom gets a 2 out of 10, and it's lucky to get that. Number 7, MC Groove's Dance Craze, 42%. In late 1998, the first Dance Dance Revolution game dropped and changed arcades forever. Ever since then, people have been stomping on arrows and trying not to look like a fucking idiot while dancing along to a bunch of awesome music, some of which is from notable artists and some of it being made in-house by Konami specifically for the games. Now, over the last almost 27 years, there have been well over 100 DDR games released across almost every platform imaginable. While it might not be quite as popular as it used to be, the series is still going strong today. For reference, by the way, I fucking love DDR. It was the perfect thing at the perfect fucking time, and it took the world by storm. People loved it. My mom fucking plays DDR. She still has dance pads. Now, with so much success and innovation comes the obvious imitations. Games like Pump It Up and In the Groove came out with their own legally distinct systems, but were clearly a product of the demand for more dance games. And that's where we find ourselves at MC Groove's, with a Z, Dance Craze. There are 2 positive things I will say about this game. It technically didn't cost anything because it came bundled with the dance pad, and it had a bunch of Cascade songs. That's about it. The rest of this game fucking blows. From the weird circle format that they tried to pull off, to the small list of songs, to the difficulty or lack thereof, it's just all trash. You can change it from the circle format to the more known just arrows rising thing that you're seeing on the screen right now. By the way, this is footage of me playing a song on the hardest difficulty. Fucking 3-year-old could beat this, dude. What are we doing here? You couldn't even break a sweat playing this if you tried. Also, the notes are slightly offbeat, so having good rhythm or timing is actually a bad thing in a fucking rhythm game. I get that it was probably created just to be bundled with this dance pad, so they aren't gonna go all out. But they didn't go out at all. This shit stinks. The music selection is fine, and it features some good songs, but it's also small. This game only has 28 songs. For reference, the console version of DDR Extreme had come out a month before this, and it had 72. They had to get a deal from Cascade on his music to have it licensed in here, because he takes up a good third of the entire playlist. It's fucking wild. As a free game, I want to give it some grace, so I'm not going to give it a 0, but MC Groove's, with a Z, Dance Craze, gets a 1 out of 10. Easily one of the worst DDR clones I've ever played, and it 1000% earned its spot on this list. Number 6, Space Raiders, 40%. Looking back at my notes about this game, most of them are about the intro, and that will make sense once I start talking about the game itself, but for now, let's see what I had to say during the opening sequence. I'll read some of these off. Oh, hey, look, it's the Flood. Why is he the only one with a weird suit? No helmet? Frickin' badass, dude. I like this one. How do you have time for funerals, bro? The fucking world is ending. Go help someone, asshole. Well, they killed all of his friends, but not him for some reason. Oh, almost saw boobs. Oh, and then, the jacket that belonged to somebody else fits perfectly. Interesting. So I watched this intro, and I thought maybe it was some type of survival horror game, or some shit. And then I loaded into the game, and I understood exactly what it was. This game is a reimagining of Space Invaders in the 2000s. Fucking Space Invaders. Because that's what people wanted to fucking play at this point. That's about it. There's not a ton else to say because there's nothing else to it. Yes, instead of being top-down like the original, Space Raiders decided to completely change its format and use like a 3D front-facing angle, which is cool and all, but Contra did that shit in the 80s, so not really a fresh take. Also, not really Space Invaders. The game looks okay, and it plays well enough for what it is, but what it is just so happens to be dog shit. It's boring, it's short, and even though it plays smoothly, it's just not fun at all. Fans of shooters will be bored as fuck within the first 5 minutes, and fans of Space Invaders are going to be pissed because this is like the least faithful remake of a classic game I've ever seen, and I literally own a copy of Bomberman Act Zero. With no appeal to modern gamers or fans of the classic, who the fuck was the audience supposed to be? Also, of all things to remake, why did they think this is what gamers wanted? Why did the late 90s and mid 2000s have so many shitty upgrades to old games? Just make new shit, man. If we wanted to play the old games, we just go fucking play those. You don't need to dump years of development into something like this that literally nobody fucking asked for. It's just legit a waste of everyone's fucking time. Space Raiders gets a 2 out of 10. Like I said, it plays and it looks alright, it's just boring and fucking lame. Number 5. Disney Pixar's Monsters, Inc. Scream Arena. 39%. Well, Disney wasn't happy hogging the spotlight on the list so far, so this time they decided to drag the good folks over at Pixar down with them. The concept of this game is, interesting, to say the least. This is a Monsters, Inc. dodgeball game. That's the whole game. It's just dodgeball. I don't really see what the point was here. It's just so random. The game focuses on making your way through different levels and unlocking new levels and more characters, something that you can do all of in less than 2 hours. And once you're done with that, there's not really anything else to do unless you're playing with friends. The gameplay is alright. Now, the aiming is super bad at times, but it works well for the most part. The different level types are designed decently, but that doesn't keep this game from getting old after about an hour or so, which is, to be fair, far longer than a lot of the games that I've played so far, so I'll give it that. It looks good, so positive points there. This game is also super easy, like insanely simplistic and easy. The difficulty barely climbs as you go through the game, making it too basic for even younger gamers. That said, I think this could be a decent party game. Also, I guess there's some mini games that you can play as well, but they're multiplayer only, and I couldn't get that to work based on the fact that I have no fucking friends. I can't imagine why either. I'm such a nice, level-headed, and humble guy. And on top of all of that, I'm so classically handsome. Anyway, I legit couldn't get any of the mini games to work, but reading into them, they were apparently one of the better aspects of the game. But as I couldn't play them, I have to base my rating on what I could play, so we can just assume that with friends, this game is a point or two higher than playing it solo. And because of all that, Monsters, Inc. Scream Arena gets a 4 out of 10, which makes it the second highest Disney game on the list so far. Still though, dodgeball was just like a weird choice, man. Number 4, Universal Studio Theme Parks Adventure, 39%. Whatever you think this game is, you're wrong. You're very, very wrong. You're so wrong, in fact, that Universal Studios had to have a disclaimer at the beginning of the game saying that this game doesn't accurately represent how their parks actually are. Oh, I honestly don't even know where I should fucking start. Let's go with how this game is set up. You start at the entrance of Universal Studios with Woody Woodpecker giving you a short welcome, and then you're off to Well, you don't really know. You start exploring the park, which is made up of pre-rendered backgrounds, random NPCs, and attractions, each of which has a minigame that you can earn a stamp for. After about 5 minutes of being confused and trying to find something to do, I ran into a guy who asked if I had a map, which was perfect because I needed to know where the fuck I was. And when I said I didn't have one, he told me that there's someone that hands them out by the entrance. Fucking dickhead. So I got lost a couple more times and I made my way back to get my map and then realized immediately that it's absolutely no help at all. Games that design their maps like this piss me off. If you make a map that doesn't show paths, doesn't show any actual areas, and just shows a little blip over a picture and is like, hey, you're somewhere over here in this area, everyone involved in creating that map should be sacrificed to our Lord and Savior, Cthulhu. And no, I don't fucking care. Actually, it's Kalalu. No, it's not. It's Cthulhu or Cthulhu. Either one of those is acceptable. I don't fucking care what it was originally supposed to be pronounced as. Don't fucking give a shit. I'll say it wrong. I'll say it wrong forever. You can HP love and craft these nuts to your forehead. So yeah, anyway, the map is useless. I'm glad that I spent as much time getting lost and trying to find it as I did. Now, I wandered around aimlessly picking up letters that will do something whenever I get them all, and then I found the Jaws attraction, and I went in and I played the game, and, played is a tentative term. I hopelessly tried to figure out what to do and ended up losing, so I quit and decided to come back later. I wandered around some more and found the Waterworld attraction, wondered what kind of minigame that would be, but this one didn't have one. Now, this is way cooler. You got to pick one of 3 seats to sit in and watch a clip of the stunt show that would be from that perspective. And by a clip of the stunt show, I mean a shitty animated version of a plane jumping into a pool that's about 5 seconds long. Honestly, just taping the show from 3 different angles and showing you clips would have been way better, and probably honestly would have taken less time than it took to make this shit. After that, I noticed stuff on the ground, which ended up being trash. So I went, I picked it up, and I deposited it into the trash can, and I earned some points. What are those points for, you ask? Well, they let you buy hats themed for each attraction. Now, why would you want those? Oh, well, we'll get to that part, don't worry. So after getting lost again for a little while, I found my way to the Wild West attraction. And when I went to enter, I found out I couldn't, because Woody told me that there was too many people in line. There's a fucking line. A line. I have to wait for a line to disappear in a fucking video game. Come to find out, the way that you can skip these lines is by buying the hat that is themed like the attraction you're trying to enter. You earn points through hugging or shaking the hands of random mascots you find around the park, finding the not so hidden letters lying around, and you can earn them by picking up trash and putting it in trash cans. I think you get like 50 points for each piece of trash that you pick up. It could be 285, but I'm not really sure. What I am sure of is this game went from being, hey, let's go explore Universal Studios, to being a fucking trash collecting simulator until I grinded enough points to buy the hats I wanted for the attraction. And honestly, I wish that I hadn't. I would be happier right now if I had just said fuck that and turned off the game, but my stupid ass decided to be stubborn and bypass these lines because I wanted to play the mini games. I'm not gonna lie, they all suck. Some are too easy, some are relentlessly hard, and some are just broken. There's zero fun to be had in the attractions that you literally had to go pick up trash to be able to enter. It should have been obvious, but my anger about having lines in a virtual fucking theme park in a game based on exploring said theme park blinded me, and I guess I just couldn't see the forest for the fucking trees. Anyway, everything else about this game sucks. From the camera angles, the layout, the graphics, the way that you can't tell where you're supposed to go half the time or where you are half the time. The NPCs in the background being clearly just 2D sprites. The fact that all the games play like shit. Or maybe just the fact that the thing you do most is wander around aimlessly and pick up fucking garbage. Honestly, the only good part about this game was I randomly found Winnie Woodpecker and failed miserably about 10 times before I could finally beat her movie and TV trivia game. There's like a shit ton of questions that she can ask, like probably hundreds, so that's cool, I guess. You know, you can't just like memorize the questions, you actually gotta win. So, yeah. Other than that, all of this sucks. Universal Studios Theme Parks Adventure is a 0 out of 10. There's not an ounce of fun to be had here, and I tried for hours. Fucking miserable. Number 3, The Sum of All Fears, 36%. Nice. A game based on one of the worst Jack Ryan movies. Sick. At first glance, this might look like it's going to be just a bad first-person shooter, but you'd be completely wrong about that. This is a bad, squad-based, tactical shooter. Ooh. This loading screen should tell you everything that you need to know about the quality of this game. Yeah, this sucks. The graphics are bad, so bad that the intro can't even look good. Somehow, for an FPS game, the movement is fucking bad. The controls are boring as fuck, because it's just A button, the game. Like, you're making your way through these missions, you shoot a few bad guys, which your character auto-aims at, by the way. And then, whatever objectives you have, you just hold the A button. Unlocking a door, hold A. Hacking a computer, hold A. Defusing a bomb, shutting down a security system, monitoring cameras, hold that fucking A button, buddy. They ain't spending any time making any different mechanics for that shit. Being able to set up and outfit your squad how you want is cool, but the actual gameplay here is pretty fucking trash. And it's not the worst of its kind, but it isn't good either. This is fucking Rainbow Six dog shit edition. There's some good ideas here, but you can't make up for the lack of substance. Sum of All Fears gets a 4 out of 10. I had a little bit of fun, but the shine wears off very fast, and the problems become very, very hard to ignore the longer you go. Number 2, Disney Sports Skateboarding, 36%. Oh, Disney. Disney. What the fuck did I ever do to deserve this shit? Final game from Disney on this list, and they couldn't even get to number 1. Failures. Disney Sports was a series of games where you played as your favorite Disney characters taking part in, golly gee willikers, wouldn't you know, sports. Some of them were actually fairly solid, while a few were intensely bad, and Disney Sports Skateboarding sits at the very, very bottom of the pile. For reference, this game was also on the Game Boy Advance, and while that game is also one of the worst rated games on its system, it's a good 6 points higher than this one. That's how trash this game is. Over the course of the last few decades, I've played tons of extreme sports games, but this is one of the worst I've ever seen. It controls like shit, the mechanics make little to no sense. It's another one of those games where you have to push up to move forward, which will always relentlessly piss me off in games like this. And on top of bad controls and movement, it just looks bad. And the audio is terrible, and overall, it's just not really fun. There's no time limit, you just skate awkwardly around the levels trying to complete the generic challenges and collect like the 500 plus gems that are scattered around. And yeah, you heard that right. And that's not between levels. The first level has over 500 collectibles. First fucking level. I mean, there are just so many things that just don't fucking work here, man. The skating and tricks are stiffer than my socks were in high school. Even the grinding sucks because you don't have to keep your balance at all. You can just grind forever. Zero risk of falling. Just you hop on a rail and you will grind it until it runs out. This would be an overwhelmingly easy game if it wasn't so goddamn hard to control. Maybe that was the idea, actually. Maybe they were like, hey, instead of making the game itself difficult, let's just make it impossible to control. So like even super menial and monotonous things that we put into this game will be difficult to pull off. It's just bad. It's just so bad. Disney Sports Skateboarding gets a 1 out of 10. Simply because you can play as Max, the best part of Goof Troop, and the star of one of my favorite Disney movies ever. And number 1. Charlie's Angels, 23%. If you didn't notice the massive jump between the last two scores, Disney Sports Skateboarding was a 36%. And that game sucks ass, and it was rated 13% higher than this game. Now, you could just take that and do what you will with it, but why don't we go on this little journey together, Wouldn't want to come this far and have you guys feel left out, would I? Of course not. So unless you click off this video, I'm dragging you right down into the depths of despair that I had to experience as I played through this fucking atrocity. This game is absolutely 100% without a shadow of a doubt taking over the #1 spot on my horrible games nobody should ever fucking play, but for some reason I suffered through index, okay? This is so fucking bad. It's unrealistically bad to the point where I legitimately couldn't tell if it was done on purpose or not. Everything about this game is the drizzling shits. First of all, the graphics are fucking awful. If you think this intro looks bad, oh, just you fucking wait, pal. Of course, for the first mission, it needs to have some girls in bikinis, get some sex appeal going. Check this out. It looks like this. That's supposed to be Cameron Diaz. That. What? Oh, but it gets worse. Look at how they move. They don't move or even look human. It's so unnatural looking, it's jarring. Oh, and when you jump, it's like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon for whatever fucking reason. You just float forever. Not that you need to jump. You know, there's no reason for you to jump at all. The levels are ugly. The enemies are the same generic 3-4 people, and the combat only consists of 2 different attacks. It's insanely repetitive. You just beat up 2 people, you move 10 feet, you do it again, and you continue to do that for 10 to 15 minutes at a time. Also, there are invisible walls everywhere. And you better not miss anything you might need, like a health pickup or something like that, because if you walk past certain points, you can't backtrack. The game puts up an invisible wall and you're cut off from ever going back to that part of the level. And it happens every time you move. It's so weird. And what a terrible choice. And it can't be just to free up hardware to help the rest of the level load, because like they're all dog shit. They're all empty. There's no fucking way. The camera is probably one of the worst ever. It feels like it's purposefully bad. Like someone decided to be a dick and make it this way before he walked out and quit his job and nobody could fix it. Like, fuck this game, man. This is the worst beat 'em up I've ever had the misfortune of playing, and I spent my entire last video playing almost exclusively dog shit brawlers. How is this game so fucking bad? And also, as I've been ranting, have you noticed the riveting gameplay of me climbing up the apparently endless fucking ladder? How so much fun. This game is a travesty. It is a cataclysmic failure. If you gave this to a friend of yours that has a different skin color from you, you could be convicted of a fucking hate crime. Charlie's Angels gets a scale-breaking, all-time low score of -2 out of 10. Fuck. Well, that, my friends, is the end of another list, and the end of my journey through the big 3 6th-generation consoles. Honestly, while some of these games were absolutely terrible, I think this was by a mile like the most fun I had making one of these videos so far. The GameCube had the lowest lows, but also some of the bigger highs, so I'm glad I saved this one for last. That said, I've got a couple of ideas of where I'm going to take things next. And hopefully y'all will stick around for that. And I don't want to give any details away just yet, but while working on some of the other list videos for the future, I'm going to be starting up an old project of mine, one that I've had shelved for like 3 to 4 years, and something that I originally wanted to start this channel with. So I'm kind of stoked to start that one up again and try and get it running. Hopefully you guys will enjoy that as well. But other than that, thanks for stopping by. And there's another video of mine you can watch right here. But regardless of what you do, enjoy the rest of your day. As always, take care of yourselves, and I'll catch you on the flip side.